Hari. Gopijana Balaba Hari. Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Samuna Tira Vanachari Samuna Tira Vanachari Ayarana Madhava Indabihari Ayarana Madhava Indabihari Vedana Balaba Irivaradahari Vedana Balaba Irivaradahari Yashoda Nandan Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandan Brajajana Ranjana Samuna Tira Vanachari Samuna Tira Vanachari Ayala Madhava Sabihari Ayala Madhava Sabihari Ayala Madhava Sabihari. So, my name is Krishna Kripa Das. I'm disciple of Satsrupa Das Goswami from New York, and Shruti Sagar, who asked me to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're on the second canto, the Cosmic Manifestation, I believe it's called, and we're doing about 7 verses today. We're going to read and we're going to focus. That's 2:1:15 to 2:1:21, and we're going to focus on 19. And there's a little description about it here. It says, knowing there are some Astanga yogis in the assembly, Shukadev Goswami starts his answer to Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 27, by going through the 8 limbs of the Yama to Samadhi mixed with Bhakti, Bhakti Mishra Yoga. So, then, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you can read the translations to the 7 verses, and then we'll chant the number 19 together. And go around the room as usual. 15.
Krishna. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof.
One should leave home and practice self-control. In a sacred place, he should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified.
After sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the 3 transcendental letters, Om, A-U-M, and by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed.
No one ever calls me.
Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, withdraw it from sense activities, and by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. The mind too absorbed in material activities can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness.
Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in him only.
One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them.
O King, by this system of remembrance, by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter.
Yeah, that's it. Then we go to number 19. It's long, huh? Tachakavayam tyayed Anuchinena chetasaha No nirvishayam yuktva Tata kinchana nasmaret Adam tat paramam Vishnu Mano yatra prasidati Tachakavayam tyayed Avyuchinena chetasa No nirvishayam yuktva Tata kinchana nasmare Param na paramam Vishnu Mano yatra prasidati Please chant. What else? One more? So we can go through the word meanings together. Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought about, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. Somebody like to read the report? It's not too long then.
Foolish persons, bewildered by the external energy of Vishnu, do not know that the ultimate goal of the progressive search after happiness is to get in touch directly with Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Vishnu Tattva is an unlimited expansion of different transcendental forms of the personality of Godhead, and the supreme or original form of Vishnu Tattva is Govinda, or Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes. Therefore, thinking of Vishnu or meditating upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, specifically upon Lord Krishna, is the last word on the subject of meditation. This meditation may be begun from the lotus feet of the Lord. One should not, however, forget or be misled from the complete form of the Lord. Thus, one should practice thinking of the different parts of his transcendental body, one after another. Here in this verse, it is definitely assured that the Supreme Lord is not impersonal. He is a person, but his body is different from those of conditioned persons like us. Otherwise, meditation beginning from the pranava, Omkara, up to the limbs of the personal body of Vishnu would not have been recommended by Shukadev Goswami for the attainment of complete spiritual perfection. The Vishnu forms of worship in great temples of India are not, therefore, arrangements of idol worship, as they are wrongly interpreted by a class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Rather, they are different spiritual centers of meditation on the transcendental limbs of the body of Vishnu. The worshipable deity in the temple of Vishnu is identical with Lord Vishnu by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Therefore, a neophyte's concentration or meditation upon the limbs of Vishnu in the temple, as contemplated in the revealed scriptures, is an easy opportunity for meditation for persons who are unable to sit down tightly at one place and then concentrate upon pranava, omkara, or the limbs of the body of Vishnu, as recommended herein by Shukadev Goswami. By the great authority. The common man can benefit more by meditating on the form of Vishnu in the temple than on the Omkara, the spiritual combination of Aum, Aum, as explained before. There's no difference between Omkara and the forms of Vishnu, but persons unacquainted with the science of absolute truth try to create dissension by differentiating between the forms of Vishnu and that of Omkara. Here it is indicated that the Vishnu form is the ultimate goal of meditation, and as such, it is better to concentrate upon the forms of Vishnu than on impersonal Omkara. The latter process is also more difficult than the former.
Thank you for that. Omagana Tamarandasya, Gananjana Shalaka, Chakshurmilitamina Tasmai Sri Guruvena, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pasai Bhulesha, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Staya Saraswati Dev, Gauravani Pracharini, Namaste Sri Radha Sati Hare Krishna. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Veda Gadadhara, Sri Sadi Gaura Bhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Anchakalpatrivishcha, Kripa Sindhurevicha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Mo Namaha. So this verse number 19 deals about meditation on the form of Lord Vishnu. So there's a few verses before that that talk about the steps leading up to this meditation. And it was recommended that we talk about the Ashtanga Yoga system today, because that's what's being very briefly mentioned here. It's also mentioned by Lord Krishna in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Dhyana Yoga, Yoga Meditation. So do you have those slides? Show the one that shows all 8 steps. Yeah. So yeah. So that's the second one. The other one, yeah, that shows the 5 yamas, the 5 yamas. The other slide shows the 8 steps of yoga. Yeah. So Ashtanga Yoga is called Ashtanga Yoga because it has Asta, 8, and Anga, limbs. And these what they are. And it's considered to be a Vaishnava practice because the ultimate aim is meditation on Lord Vishnu. And there's correlations between our bhakti yoga practice and the Ashtanga Yoga practice, which are interesting to know. And sometimes in our preaching work, we run into people who've studied yoga and even studied Ashtanga Yoga. So we'll just go through them briefly. Yama and niyama have to do with controlling the body. Yama is things not to do, and niyama is things to do. Asana, I think we're familiar with. Those are the sitting postures, and the hatha yoga, all the different postures is asana. And then pranayama, a lot of people also know about. That's the breathing exercises. It comes from the word prana, which means breath, and yama, which means control. So some of the yoga centers, they also teach pranayama in addition to the sitting postures. And pratyahara, basically, we know the word ahar. It comes up in the Bhagavad Gita when it's talking about the 4 different kinds of food. It also comes up in the Upadeshamrita, where it's mentioned that we shouldn't eat, we shouldn't overeat or overcorrect pratyahara. So ahara basically means eating, and prati means the opposite. So each one of our senses is eating some kind of object. Our eyes are eating images, and our ears are eating melodies, and our nose is eating fragrances, and our tongue is eating tasty prasadam, if we're very fortunate, and abominable things if we're not. Our sense of touch is also acquiring different items of knowledge. We want to feel things that stimulate our sense of touch. So the senses, our mind is being dragged in 5 different directions by these 5 senses. So how can we meditate with our mind going in so many directions? So pratyahara, the idea is that we stop chasing after the objects of the senses. There's a Gita verse, I think, that sort of related to that. There's this nice verse, 6:26. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchala astram tatastato niyamritad atman yeva vashamnayat. Wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So the mind is chasing after the different sense objects, and the soul, who is above them, uses his intelligence, which is above the mind, to bring the mind back. So then the last 3 are different degrees of meditation. Dharana is just focusing the mind on one point, and then dhyana is a more sustained meditation, and samadhi is complete absorption. So what's interesting is these yamas and niyamas, they're actually supposed to be taught before they teach the sitting postures, but like practically every yoga studio just dives into the sitting postures. But you're not actually supposed to be able to attain success in yoga without practicing the preliminaries. So let's, if you could show the yama niyama. So this yama niyama are ways of regulating our senses, regulating our body. And you notice in our practice of bhakti yoga, we follow many of these. For example, our vow, no eating, that's ahimsa. And gambling is said to destroy truthfulness. So part of our practice of truthfulness is to avoid gambling. Of course, we don't steal except for prasadam, right? If nobody put their name on. Brahmacharya celibacy, no illicit sex. It's part of our practice. Aparigraha, that shows up in Bhagavad Gita, freedom from possessiveness. Sotam, that's very important. That's one of the things we practice. In the forbidden principles, we say no illicit sex, and that's because sex is dirty. That enhances our cleanliness. Santosha, satisfaction. Tapa, austerity. We give up intoxication as austerity. Svajaya is interesting because if you do a search online, like I did, for 5 yamas and 5 niyamas, they all describe svadhyaya as self-reflection, which is basically more or less what the Sanskrit means. Dhyaya means like meditation, and sva means one's own. But if you look through Prabhupada's books consistently, even in Bhagavad Gita, where svadhyaya is mentioned at least a couple places, Srila Prabhupada translated it as scriptural study. So we study the scripture, and if you're familiar with the austerities of speech, you find they also show up here. There's this nice verse, 17:15. It goes, Anurvegam karam vakyam. Speech that's not agitating to others. Satyam, truth, which is truthful. Priham, which is sweet or dear. And hitam, which is beneficial to others. Satyam, hita, hitam chayat. Svadhyaya vyasinam shaiva. And vyasana means practice, and svadhyaya means reading the scriptures or reciting the scriptures. So one of the austerities of speech is to recite the scriptures. And then it continues, these are austerities of speech. So we see that satyam is there, truthfulness. And we see this Shajaya, the scriptural study, is under the austerity. And Tapa, austerity itself, is all related to austerity of speech. So those are all part of our practice. And actually the most important one is Ishvara Pranadana. So a lot of people don't know actually that in their real practice of yoga, surrender to the Lord is actually an important part. And and if you do a search for 5 niyamas, they don't say, when they translate Ishvara Pranadana, they don't say surrender to the Lord. They say surrender to a higher power. But everybody knows Ishvara means the Lord. So these are also many of these yamas and niyamas are part of our practice of bhakti yoga, and they're actually essential. Yes, Prabhu. What do they say? Well, they translate that as Svadhyaya, which means self-reflection. And then they explain it in terms of self-reflection. Yeah. So I guess that's enough of those. Actually, one last thing. I attended a class by Krishna Kshetra Swami, actually before he was a Swami, but when he was still a guru. And he studied this elaborately, and he gave a whole class on the 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. He said there's actually the most important of all the niyamas is nonviolence, or the yamas is nonviolence. The most important of niyamas is cleanliness, and that's why they're listed first. And those are definitely things that we practice among the 4 regular principles, because we practice no meat eating and practice no illicit sex. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that it's not that all sex is dirty, because Krishna does say in the Bhagavad Gita that he actually is sex that is not opposed to religious principles, but illicit sex is the
that's why they say no illicit sex. Thank you. Yeah, and also for cleanliness we do other things, like we bathe regularly. There's one purport where Prabhupada says that brahmachari should bathe once a day, a grihastha should bathe twice a day, and sannyasi should bathe 3 times a day. It might be the verse of the purport, I can't remember. So I wrote my guru and said, how much should we bathe a day? And he said, we should bathe twice a day. And he actually, back in the 26 Second Avenue days, he was one of the people who had an apartment. And because everyone had to bathe twice a day, his apartment was very busy with people coming to bathe in it. So, yeah, so we can go back to the 8 items again. And, yeah, so this dhyana or meditation is something that's practiced by these yogis, and they see this 4-headed form of Vishnu in the heart, and they meditate on that form, and that's described in this purport and verse. So as bhakti yogis, we don't do that. We go to the temple and we see the form of the deity, which is a lot easier. And we also, it mentions that we should meditate on the individual limbs of the deity, and not forget the complete form of the deity. And Srila Prabhupada explained that by seeing the deity morning and evening, the form of the deity becomes fixed in our mind. So when we're out in Sankirtan, we could be thinking of the deity, think, oh, I'm going to come back and chant the Gaur Arti. When I was a Bhakta, we would do Sankirtan during the day. We'd come back, we'd take our second shower, and we'd go to the evening program and chant Kiba Jaya Jaya Gaur, and see that Lord Chaitanya who we'd been worshipping all day by trying to distribute some books or stickers, whatever. So the meditation is actually the goal, and when our mind is completely absorbed in the form of the Lord, that is the goal of our process, and the goal of Stanga Yoga, Samadhi. And In the Bhagavad Gita, there's 4 verses that describe samadhi, and sometimes I use it to try to sell Bhagavad Gita because it tells about a very blissful consciousness that we can attain if we take the trouble to practice our yoga nicely. In that stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness. So people aren't experiencing boundless transcendental happiness. They're experiencing some sensational, temporary, sensual experience that very soon passes away and leaves them empty and thinking about what do we do now? And their goal is to have as many exciting sensual experiences as much as possible, so they're under the illusion that they're happy all the time. But that's not available in the material world. But this is boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses, established. Thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there's no greater gain. Every once in a while, something happens to us, and we think, it can't get better than this. Sometimes there's an ecstatic kirtan, or ecstatic class, or ecstatic prasadam. We think it can't get better than this. But that doesn't last forever. The next part says, being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. So that peak experience we have is something that passes away. But this samadhi is a peak experience that never passes away. This Krishna payment, once you attain love of Krishna, the whole rest of your existence is different ecstatic, emotionally satisfying exchanges with the Supreme Lord that completely satisfy your soul, mind, and body. So it continues, this is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So the idea that Krishna is, everyone is attracted by different people in this world because of their different personal qualities. We may be attracted by somebody's beauty, or somebody's wit, or somebody's affection, or somebody's prowess, or all kinds of different things. But Krishna is that person who's most beautiful, most powerful, most protective, most sensitive, most enchanting and delightful, humorous. And if we were actually to perceive Krishna, we would be completely attracted. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to gain a kingdom greater than his grandfather, and he performed these austerities, and he like completely absorbed his mind in Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu actually appeared, and he realized that all the things he was striving for were like insignificant compared to the joy of Lord Vishnu's personal darshan. He said he was just seeking after broken glass, and he's obtained this valuable gem. So, unfortunately, in the beginning, we don't appreciate the Krishna, although we know that Krishna is all attractive, we don't actually experience Krishna as all attractive. And the reason why is our bhakti isn't at the highest level. Fortunately, we have some bhakti, so we have some attraction to Krishna, and therefore, maybe if we sleep through Mangalarati, we feel that we really miss something. Or if we're at our relatives and we don't see the deities for a few days, or the kirtan, or the devotees, we feel there's a gap. And so we have some attachment, but we're not on the same level. I wanted to read a description of some people who are in samadhi. These are the gopis. They're famous as being the topmost devotees of Lord Krishna. Even when we can eagerly look upon your beautiful face, so lovely with its adornment of curly locks, our pleasure is hindered by our eyelids, which were fashioned by the foolish creator. So the gopis are looking at Krishna's amazingly beautiful transcendental body, and their eyes blink. And for that time that their eyes are blinking, they can't see Krishna, and it's putting them in complete anxiety. So, I mean, we see the deity and we're happy to see the deity on a good day, but we never, even notice that our eyes have blinked many times, and for that period of time. So that verse is in the Gopi Gita, 10:31-15, and it's a glorification both of Krishna's beauty. Krishna is so amazingly beautiful that's the experience of the gopis, and it's also a glorification of the gopis. Their love is so great that they can't tolerate that momentary absence from Krishna. So Krishna really is, as it said in the end of that verse for today, number 19, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth, the mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. And we're trying to get to our point where our mind is completely absorbed in Krishna. And there's some different verses that stress the remembrance of Krishna. And I want to recite them because I always think of different verses that are related. One is 8:14. Apparently, the famous devotee Jayananda, whose disappearance day we celebrate, who was very into Rath Yatra, he had a verse book, and this verse was in it. It's 8:14. Let's see. Ananya Cheta Sata Tam Yomam Smarti Nitisa Tasyam Sulabha Parta Nityayu Tasim Yogina, which says that for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain. Okay, so we all want to obtain Krishna easily, isn't it? So Krishna's giving us the secret. We just remember him. We can easily obtain him. Osanaprita, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. And then there's another one, 1 to 15 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see. Yadanudhyasina yukta karma granta nibandhanam chindanti kovidas tasya oyakoyat katautim. With a sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead, who therefore will not pay attention to his message. So that just tells us how powerful it is. Just remember Krishna during your life or at the time of your death. All your karma is finished just by that complete remembrance. Actually, there's a verse I wanted to quote in the comments section of a previous class, because there's that verse talking about how one moment of pure consciousness is better than a lifetime of ignorance. There's a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6. It tells about the power on this devotional service. And let's see. Find it here. Want to bring up the whole chapter on 6 and go toward around 36 or so. So Krishna appears to the let's say, maybe back a little bit. Krishna appears to the to Narada, and a little bit before. Oh wait. Yeah, I thought I looked it up by that. Let me try it one more time. Oh, okay. At any rate, the Lord is talking to Narada, and he's saying that by engaging in this devotional service, even for a few days, well, one becomes so elevated that he attains the kingdom of God. So there's just that complete absorption. If we actually take Krishna consciousness seriously and completely absorb ourselves, even for a few days, we can attain a very high level of purity. So let's see. And then there's one verse that it's in the Padma Purana, but it's quoted in the Madhya Lila 22:113. Smartavya sachatam Vishnu, vismartavam jatu chit, sarve vidi sheda sure, etayor eva kink. One should always remember Lord Vishnu. One should not forget him at any time. All the prohibitions and all the prescriptions in the revealed literatures are servants of these two things. So that really focuses on the idea that all that we're trying to do, whether we're Astanga yogis or Bhakti yogis, is we're trying to become fixed in this remembrance. And Prabhupada says a few things about how to do that in the purport. Says there are many regular principles in the Shastras, instructions given by the spiritual master. These regular principles should act as servants of the basic principle that one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. So if you chanting 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regular principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. My guru wrote this book, Japa Reform Notebook, and in the beginning it has that line of all the regular principles that spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. And then he continues, one may sell books or enlist like members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he's going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he's remembering Krishna. When he enlists a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavya sachatam Vishnu vismartavya nachatuchi. Conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that cause him to forget Krishna. These two basic principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. And there's a purport to the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where there's another summary of how how Prabhupada expects us to remember Krishna. In answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates on his personal form and worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. For one, in such Krishna consciousness, there are no material activities because everything is done for Krishna. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna. Sometimes he cooks prasadam or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna. Sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does, he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi. So that's the description of Prabhupada's vision of how he wants us to be in samadhi. So does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts about any of the things in the purports and the verses? Yes.
Haribol, it's a nice talk. The question I have is that if you're able to sit in front of the deity all day and chant and read Bhagavatam and do kirtan and all that, very easy to remember Krishna. But what about for those that they have to go to school or they have to deal with all these work clients that don't practice their message, or you have some kind of work that focuses your whole mind on it. Like how can these verses apply to someone like that who can't perform these activities all day?
Sometimes the people on their desk in the office, they have a picture of their wife and kids because that's who they're working for. So the devotee has a picture of his guru, a picture of Krishna, because that's what we're working for. So we meditate when we go to work, that we're going to work to accumulate wealth for the service of Krishna. The family man considers his wife and children to be devotees of Krishna, and Krishna's given him the service maintaining these people. So he's doing very responsible work for Krishna. And so by meditating on the goal, and then there's basically the verse that talks about that in the Gita is 8:7, where Krishna says, Tasat sarveshu kaleshu mama smara yudhya chamayarpita manobodhir mameva shoshaya. Should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time perform your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So, of course, Arjuna had an advantage because Krishna is right in front of him on the chariot. So it was easy for him. So to meditate on the goal of our activities in Krishna, and at the end of the day, we can offer our days of activities to Krishna and actually think, I've done all these things for you, please accept it. Yeah? And that helps develop the relationship. So in the beginning, and in the purport to that 8:7, which I read, basically, Prabhupada makes the point: if you chant Hare Krishna nicely, then you're going to be remembering Krishna throughout the day. And that purport, it's special because the special thing about it is when he mentions chanting Hare Krishna. There's another one, 2 verses before, where he puts the whole Hare Krishna mantra twice for emphasis. But the purport to the verse I just quoted, this instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them at the same time. Think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind, intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna, Loka, without doubt. It also reminds me that my guru, he worked in the welfare office to raise money for 26 Second Avenue. And he one time he said that, he asked Prabhupada, when the people are talking all kinds of nonsense in the office, can I chant Hare Krishna in my mind? Prabhupada encouraged him and he said, not only are the people in the office talking all nonsense, even the greatest philosophers are talking all nonsense. But you can chant Hare Krishna in your mind, where you can't chant Hare Krishna outside sometimes, and that will keep your mind in a very peaceful state. Sometimes people say things that make you angry or something, but if you chant Hare Krishna in your mind, then it can protect you from being overwhelmed by anger. Yes, actually, I saw you first, and then I saw you, and then I saw you. Okay.
For me, thank you for class. Very nice class. For me, it's easy to kind of, sometimes I'll get down on myself because I just can't seem to remember Krishna all the time, and there are so many moments where I forget Krishna, and I feel like I'm just like there's no hope. So how can I be patient with myself and not be hard on myself about that, but also not be easy on myself and think, well, that's like keep the urgency at the same time. That's a hard balance for me.
Well, there is a verse that reminds me of everything reminds me of a verse. Krishna, in his conversation with Uddhava, talks about people who can't always think of him, but sometimes actually engage in some sense gratification. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all my material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So it sort of talks about both features there. You should feel bad about it, but you shouldn't feel so bad about it that you stop doing all the good things that will lead to the ultimate goal. And we can always pray. That prayer is one of my favorite items of devotional service, along with hearing, chanting, and remembering. Because no matter how bad things get, we can always pray. And Krishna, and praying, actually, if you're praying, you're already doing really well, because you're admitting that God exists, and you're admitting that God cares, and that God has the ability to help you, which are all good things. So you're already, and you're admitting you're subordinate to God. So just by engaging in prayer, you're really putting yourself in a good state of mind. And actually, one time, one devotee had some problem, and Prabhupada told him, go to the deity and say, my dear sir, this is the problem, and present the problem, and Krishna will take care of it. Prabhupada also had faith in prayer. So we can pray to be more attentive and focused and remember more. And one prayer that I would just say every night before I went to bed, I would say, please protect me from falling down, and please help me to steadily increase my devotional service, to be steady in devotional service. So it's very empowering prayer. Okay. Melanie?
Add to the yes, just adding to the comment about, or the question about, what do I do to remember Krishna while I'm off doing some job or this or that in the store and all. That's where that process of establishing love within the heart comes. That's where that development. We all, can think of things right away. Oh, I love this chocolate halva, or I love, to go and see or I love this person so much. And we have that sense of just feeling our heart overflowing with emotion. So do we feel that way for Krishna? All the time. Like, I just can't wait till I get back to the temple to see him, because I'm thinking about him all the time. So that's where that practice of meditation upon your love of God is so handy, I would say. And the other thing I wanted to just add about that is that in my deep dive of studies into the Yoga Sutras, they talk about that love of Ishvar, and say, you can, the higher power or whatever kind of thing like that, it all works And you can kind of even put that aside, and all this rest of this stuff will help you. But if you have love of Ishvar, love of Vishnu, love of God, that will propel you forward so much quicker.
Thank you for that. This is Melanie from Tallahassee, by the way. She's one of my Harinam partners for over a decade. Always willing to go out and drive me to the spot and tell me about new spots. Yeah, one time we chatted the Martin Luther King Day Parade, and she was the only person to show up, so we did Harinam together. This parade, Tallahassee. Yes. Well, let's see. Oh, okay. No, Rasika, is it? Yeah. You had your hand up, right?
I was gonna just make a comment about what Max was asking about, and that is, if you can recognize that the Lord, if you have these duties, like for instance, going and doing your job, then Krishna doesn't want you to sit around and chant and read all day. He's given you a task to do. And if you can be mindful of that, one of the things that Prabhupada says is what you do before you start the task is say to yourself, Krishna has given me this task to do, and therefore I want to do it nicely. And then put yourself into the task with that in mind, that you're going to do your absolute best for him. Because if you have the tension or the resistance that, gee, I should really be doing this other thing than what my duty is, which is what Arjuna's issue was. He thought that he should be doing something else. But when he, got rid of his resistance to his duty and embraced it as Krishna's will, then he was able to, stand up with bhakti and fight.
Very good. That's a nice, that's in a purport in the 18th chapter, Prabhupada says that we should think that we've been engaged in this duty by Krishna. Rich?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kripa, you were talking about, obviously you can't just start chanting the Maha Mantra at your workplace, and I know it's hard, but is it okay to try to chant the Maha Mantra in your mind while you're working? And I know you might not be able to be as attentive as you would if you're chanting it out loud. But if you're at the workplace and you're there for a long time and you have, you don't have a lot of tasks at the moment, is it okay to just try and chant the Maha Mantra in your mind while you're at work?
Yeah, you can always chant in your mind. You can chant shlokas in your mind. You can remember pastimes in your mind. You can remember the Damodar Lila in your mind very well by now, because we've been chanting about it every day for almost a month. So different things, with the mantra. There's a Narayani said that she learned how to chant the mantra in her sleep, and that she taught her daughter how to do it. I never really got from her how she did that. But it's still in my mind, and maybe the next time I see her, I'll ask her. So I'm going to stay in Alachua because that's where the kirtan is the next few days. But I just wanted to thank you all for your hospitality and for the nice prasadam, the nice sabji of prema amrita, and the breakfast of Rita, and the nice soup of Briya Mardanga, and the pasta of Kardike. And and thank all the people who came in Harinam to share the joy of Krishna consciousness with the other residents of Kenya as well. And I look forward to seeing you when I come back to Florida in the spring semester. I'm between Tallahassee and Tampa, and I love coming here and chanting with you all at Krishna lunch and doing a Saturday night Harinam. So, thank you so much for everything. Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada.